This is my video update on this Tuesday afternoon, December the 24th, coming to you from Nicosia, Cyprus. To everyone that is celebrating Christmas Eve on this December 24th, have a happy and merry Christmas Eve. Let's talk about some news. And let's start things off with a statement from the Kremlin, from Yuri Ushakov, who I believe was sitting in on the meeting between Putin and FICO. And Ushakov spoke to reporters who asked him about a possible location or possible locations for a Trump-Putin summit. And Ushakov confirmed that the Kremlin is getting offers to host a meeting between Trump and Putin so that they can try to work out a deal and get to a ceasefire in Ukraine. As I reported yesterday in my video update, as me and Alexander reported on the Duran, the main reason for Fico's trip to Moscow and his meeting with Putin was to continue the work of Orban. Orban has met with Putin. Orban spoke with Putin for an hour on the telephone. He gave Putin a call, and they spoke for an hour. This was about 3 weeks ago. And Fico is following up on the progress made by Orban, which is all about getting to a ceasefire and a deal in Ukraine, winding down the conflict in Ukraine. That was the main reason for Fico's trip to Moscow. And in a roundabout way, with this statement, Ushakov has confirmed as much. He's talking about possible locations, or at least he's revealing that the Kremlin is getting offers and thinking about possible locations for a meeting between Trump and Putin. Let me read you exactly what Ushakov told reporters. We have received several proposals from different countries, he told reporters. I will not name specific countries in order not to impact any potential developments, but such proposals have been made and are being made. So this is as close as you're going to get to a confirmation from the Kremlin that they're putting together a meeting between Trump and Putin. It's in the works. A couple of weeks after January 20th, I imagine we're going to get an announcement which will confirm that Trump is going to be meeting with Putin, and we're going to get a location as well. Hungary, Slovakia, possible locations, perhaps, but you have the whole ICC issue, and you also have the European globalist political class who would absolutely freak out if Trump was to meet Putin in the European Union, somewhere in the EU. Maybe Serbia, maybe Belgrade. That would be an interesting choice for a summit meeting. Turkey, Istanbul. That would be a possible location. Minsk, Belarus. That would be pretty interesting. Minsk 1, Minsk 2. Maybe somewhere in Eurasia. Who knows? But we're going to get a meeting. We are going to get a meeting between Trump and Putin. And they are going to talk about ending the conflict in Ukraine. And this is freaking out the collective West media. They are freaking out. The Wall Street Journal the editorial board of the Wall Street Journal, they posted an article with the title, Putin Sends Trump a Ukraine Message. The Russian suggests his price for peace and Kiev's defeat and U.S. humiliation. Interesting article, interesting choice of words, huh? And U.S. humiliation, the Wall Street Journal writes. They want to prevent Trump from having a dialogue with Putin. They want to prevent the United States from speaking to Russia. Whatever you may think of Trump, whatever you may think of Putin, whatever ideas we all have about a ceasefire or a peace deal or what that could mean, well, what would a ceasefire look like? Whatever our thoughts are about this entire situation, this entire story about Trump meeting with Putin, just the fact that we're so close to the U.S. president speaking with the Russian president is a positive. It is absolutely a positive. Even if a deal cannot be reached, at least they're talking to each other. That is a positive. The last time Biden spoke to Trump, Biden spoke to Putin. Biden spoke to Trump. Biden spoke to Putin was when? 2022? That's unacceptable. It's unacceptable. Especially because the United States this is their war. This is their proxy war. That's why it has to be communication between Russia and the United States. It has to be. You don't need Europe there. You don't even need Ukraine present at the early stages. This is the US's proxy war. This is Biden's proxy war. The United States has to speak to Russia. Even if a deal cannot be reached, at least we're going to get some dialogue, and that is a positive. That's how I see it. Now, the Wall Street Journal, they want to prevent any sort of dialogue or communication between the United States and Russia. That is why they are using the words, a U.S. humiliation. Don't speak to Putin, Trump, because you're going to be humiliated. They're playing to Trump's ego, his narcissism, his ego. They're playing to it. You don't want to be humiliated, do you? You don't want to face humiliation, Trump. So better not to even speak to the Russian president. They're nasty. The collective West media is nasty. Let's see what the Wall Street Journal says in this article. They say that Russia's 2022 Istanbul proposal called for Ukraine to abandon aspirations to join NATO, become a permanently neutral state, and drastically shrink its armed forces. This would ratify Russia's territorial gains and render Ukraine defenseless against inevitable future Russian aggression. When the Kremlin floated that plan, Russian troops were in Bucha and Irpin, about as close to the center of Kiev as JFK Airport is to Midtown Manhattan. Ukraine has since driven the Russians out of Kiev and the regions of Kherson and Kharkiv, broken Russia's Black Sea naval blockade, and taken the fight to Russian territory in the Kursk region. But Russia is making gains in Ukraine's east with the help of China's technology and North Korean blah, 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 blah. Everything I read you in the second paragraph is just nonsense. Nonsense. Fake news propaganda from the Wall Street Journal. Everything in that second paragraph is false. 100% freaking false. Or they're omitting information. For example, the Russians, when they were in the area of Kiev, they removed their troops because they were negotiating a ceasefire, which was eventually going to be called the Istanbul ceasefire agreement, Istanbul of 2022. And as a confidence measure, as a goodwill gesture, the Russians said, okay, we'll start removing our troops. We're getting close to a deal, so we can start to pull back. The Wall Street Journal doesn't say that. The Black Sea Fleet destroyed. Nonsense. We all know that's nonsense. The Great Kherson and Kharkiv counteroffensive and the Ghost of Kiev and all that stuff. Nonsense. All of that stuff is complete fiction. And of course, you have to talk about how Russia would never be able to be making gains in the conflict if it wasn't for China and the North Korean troops. If only you could show some evidence of the North Korean troops. But the Putin, he's burning their faces. So you just can't get any evidence, right? No evidence because the Russians are burning the faces of the North Koreans. Oh well, anyway, let's move on. That's the Wall Street Journal. They're doing their very best to try and prevent any type of dialogue taking place between Trump and Putin. They're very worried. Elensky's freaking out. He's worried as well. He actually stated that perhaps FICO is being bribed by Russia. That is what Elensky was hinting at in his statement the other day. Elensky talking about FICO and Putin and Russia. Where's his quote from the Green Goblin? The church bells are a-ringing. Let's see. Elensky said, this is coming from Politico. Elensky accuses Slovak PM Fico of helping Putin weaken Europe. Fico's goal is to deal with Russia, and this is what benefits him. This is indeed a big security issue, both for Slovakia and the entire Europe. Why is the leader so dependent on Moscow? What is being paid to him, and what does he pay with? Elensky wrote on Monday. Moscow provides significant discounts to Fico, but Slovakia pays for them. Such discounts are not free. Payments to Russia are made through sovereignty or murky schemes. Man, talk about projection. Talk about freaking projection from Elensky. Yeah, it's Fico that's corrupt. Not the Green Goblin. It's Fico that's corrupt. It's Fico that's getting paid by the Russians, not the 200 billion or 300 billion or 500 billion that has been poured into Ukraine. Hasn't been audited. Nah, that money's clean. It's some murky deal. That's the word that Elensky uses, some murky deal between Fico and Putin. It needs to be investigated. He actually is calling on Slovakia's intel agency to investigate Fico because, according to Elensky, something murky, something dirty is going on. That's the only way he can explain Fico traveling to Moscow and meeting with Putin. Elensky. Podolyak, I don't understand, Podolyak. Why is this Fico in Moscow? I don't get it. I really don't understand. Why does Luis Figo go to Moscow? Next week, will Ronaldo go to Moscow? Maybe Messi will go to Moscow. What is he doing there? Mr. President, I think you're getting confused. Fico, the Prime Minister of Slovakia, was in Moscow, not Figo, not the football legend Luis Figo from Portugal. Oh. Yes, now this makes more sense. Okay, now I understand. I was thinking, why is Luis Figo in Moscow? What is he doing there? Okay, now I understand. Maybe Fico is doing some business with the Putin. We must get Slovak intel to investigate. Podolyak, what do you think? I'll prepare a statement right away, Mr. President. Of course, the Baltic countries had to chime in on the meeting between Fico and Putin. And we have a post on X from Gitanas Nausėda, I believe the president of Latvia? Lithuania. I believe he is the president of Lithuania, right? or Estonia, or Latvia. Anyway, I don't know. I don't know. Gitanis Nauseda, he said, how cheap is your love? There are those who come to Russia with love and feel gassed to meet a war criminal. This is not Lithuania's way. This is not Lithuania's way. We chose energy independence and real market prices with no political strings attached. Yeah, we chose to spend 20 times more for our energy. Oh boy, how cheap is your love? How deep is your love? He was listening to the Bee Gees. I think Mr. Nauseda was listening to the Bee Gees. How deep is your love? Maybe dreaming about the time when he would meet Putin in the Kremlin, jealous of Fico. How deep is your love? And then he wrote, how cheap is your love? What a smart, clever play of words from the Lithuanian president, or prime minister, or foreign minister. I don't know what his position is. I believe president. So that was his post on X. Very upset that Fico met with Putin. He actually thinks that they met to talk about energy. They did talk about energy, but even the Kremlin told Fico, there's really not much we can do. We absolutely want to provide energy to Slovakia, but it has to transit through Ukraine, so we're going to have to solve this Ukraine problem, and then we're good to go to provide energy to Slovakia. As much energy as Slovakia wants. Cheap, reliable Russian energy. Just got to solve Project Ukraine. And then Fico told Putin, solve Project Ukraine? I think we can work on that. So Waltz, the incoming NSA guy who is taken over for whiz kid wonder boy Jake Sullivan, the real U.S. foreign policy president, Jake Sullivan, as has been revealed by the Wall Street Journal as well. Jake Sullivan calling all the shots for the United States when it comes to foreign policy. But Waltz, he had an interview with Ben Shapiro of the Daily Wire. And Waltz, he told Shapiro that things have changed with Project Ukraine. The narrative has changed. That is what Waltz told Shapiro. We've seen everybody's narrative go from as long as it takes, blank check, don't dare say anything else or you're somehow pro-Russian, to how do we get this to a deal? The Florida lawmaker, who is slated to serve as National Security Advisor in the incoming administration, told political commentator Ben Shapiro on Sunday. We've gone from as long as it takes to how do we get a deal? Waltz and Shapiro, they talked about how Russia's military has been significantly weakened and Russia's economy is in tatters, and even if a deal is worked out, all in all, Russia's come out on the losing end of this. The cope. They were coping hard. Shapiro does not like Russia. And Waltz, between themselves, they were coping really, really hard. Russia's been, their economy has been defeated. Their military has been, essentially their military has been defeated. Gas station masquerading as a country. But we're going to get a deal, and well, Russia actually lost this conflict, even though we're going to get a deal, which is going to be exactly the deal that Putin wants. That's what the Wall Street Journal was reporting on, by the way. They actually say that Putin's deal is Istanbul 2022, and they're afraid that Trump is going to agree. The Wall Street Journal spells it out. They say that Putin is calling for the four regions in full, those four regions to be Russian territory. In other words, the Ukraine military, whatever's left of them in those four regions, they have to leave. No NATO for Ukraine. And no military, or a very small, insignificant military in what remains of Ukraine and sanctions relief. That's what the Wall Street Journal says is in Putin's plan. The Wall Street Journal says this was the plan that Putin spelled out during his Q&A from the other day. But the Wall Street Journal is wrong. Man, the Wall Street Journal, they're not really doing good reporting, are they? This is actually the plan that Putin spelled out, Wall Street Journal, in June at the Russian Foreign Ministry. Get your facts right, WSJ. Slackers. You guys are slackers, WSJ. Yeah, this plan has been around for a while now. Putin has talked about this plan over and over and over again. The ceasefire deal, the terms that Russia's looking for. He's been talking about this over and over again. Lavrov has been talking about the ceasefire terms. Saharov has talked about the ceasefire terms. Medvedev has talked about the ceasefire terms. The Wall Street Journal is making it out like these terms were just announced last week. More fake news and propaganda from the Wall Street Journal, or incompetence. Maybe it's just incompetence. But you know what else I believe will be in a deal that Trump might make with Putin, and Trump might make this deal with Putin. He might just make this deal. Elections for Ukraine as well. Don't be surprised if they agree to elections in Ukraine. Elensky has to go, and we have to get a new president and a new administration. An administration that is more friendly, more neutral, and more friendly to Russia. That will also be in any type of ceasefire agreement. And Trump, he can agree to these terms, and he can go back to the United States and say he got the deal, and everyone's going to be happy. Everyone's going to be happy, except the neocons. Except the neocons, the Europeans, and the globalists. But who cares about them? Everyone else is going to be very happy. The killing stops, the war ends. And if you can provide some sanctions relief, remove some of the sanctions, you can also bring down some of the inflation as well. Everyone is going to be happy. And Trump can call this a win. And Waltz and Shapiro and all of these commentators, and Trump's NSA, Mike Waltz, and Ben Shapiro, political commentator, they can do their shows. He can do his show about how Russia was defeated and Russia lost X, Y, and Z, and actually this was a Ukraine win, and actually this was a United States win, and let him talk about that stuff on his show on the Daily Wire. Who cares? Who cares? We all know the truth, and Russia will know the truth, and the world will know the truth. That's what matters. So that's the interview between Waltz and Shapiro, the interview and the coping. The coping, the admission from Waltz that a deal is going to be made or wants to be made, and the cope. Where am I walking? All right, I know where I am. So Erdogan looks like he's going to be moving in on the Kurds. We're getting reports that Erdogan and the government in Damascus, whatever you want to call Al-Jalani, who's controlled by Turkey, but they're framing it as the government in Damascus and Turkey, might be preparing to remove the Kurds from Syria. Now they're going to start fighting. Turkey, Erdogan, the Kurds, backed by the United States, also backed by Israel. We're getting reports that Israel and Turkey are also starting to argue a bit about what's going on in Syria and who controls what. They're starting to argue. Completely expected. Greenland replied to Trump's statement the other day, yesterday, where he talked about buying Greenland, and Greenland, the Prime Minister of Greenland, said that Greenland's not for sale. a proper response. Don't get into it when Trump is trolling you. Don't get emotional. Don't get into too many details. You know what Trump's up to. That's why he makes these crazy statements, because he wants to open up a negotiation from his position, from a position of strength. So he comes up with these crazy statements. We're going to buy Greenland, or we're going to take the Panama Canal, or something like that, or Canada's going to be the 51st state. He's trolling, and he's trying to position himself in a stronger place for negotiations. So the best thing that countries can do, that leaders can do, is to not take the bait. Just come out with a very short, simple response, and then when the time comes, and you have to negotiate, or if you want to negotiate, I don't know, maybe you want to negotiate and talk about resources and shipping lanes and whatever else you want to talk about when it comes to Greenland. I don't know. I think it's about shipping lanes and resources and minerals that Trump is after, that his administration wants. If you want to discuss stuff like that, then discuss it. But for now, the best response when Trump throws stuff like this out there is to just put out a simple 1 or 2 sentence reply, and just don't get into any more details. And just let it go. Not for sale. That's a good response. So Greenland's not for sale. And just leave it there. That's a good response. The response from the president of Panama was also good, but I think his statement was a bit too long. It was about 4.5, 5 minutes, the entire statement. I think he could have shortened it to like a minute. If he shortened it to a minute, and he also, I think he messed up in his statement as well yesterday, where he said, we're ready for negotiations. He said something along those lines. He said, the Panama Canal is Panama's, and it's not up for any negotiations. It's not for sale. And then towards the end of his statement, he said, but we're ready to negotiate. Maybe he shouldn't have used the word negotiate. Perhaps he should have used the word talk. You're welcome, President Trump, because we have such a good relationship with the United States and they're such a valued ally and partner. You're always welcome to visit Panama, and we can talk about rates or fees or transit via the canal for U.S. Ships, U.S. trade. That would have been, whatever. I'm just kind of throwing stuff out there. That would have probably been a better response and a shorter response. Trudeau flipped out. Trudeau got emotional. He got emotional, as was expected, because Trudeau's a 10-year-old boy. He got emotional, flew to Mar-a-Lago, then flew back to Canada, then tried to get Freeland to resign, and he blew up his entire administration. That's what happens when you act on emotion. So one more story. Salome Zurabichvili. She's not going. She's not going, man. I believe she has to vacate the office of the presidency. She's not president anymore, but she has to like pack up all her stuff, all her EU flags and stuff like that. She has to put them in a box and leave by the 29th of December or the 28th of December. But she's out there issuing an ultimatum to Georgia. She's telling Georgia Dream, elections or else. Elections or else. She refuses to go. So let's do a clown world. How are we doing on time? Yeah, let's do a clown world and wrap this video up. This will be a quick clown world. Former Ukrainian Foreign Minister Kuleba tries a new reason why Ukraine needs to be in NATO, so it doesn't start a war against Russia in the future. Kuleba. Ukraine must get into NATO so that it doesn't start a war with Russia in the future. The ex-foreign minister of Ukraine. That's the video, everybody. TheDuran.locals.com. We are on Rumble, ODYSEE, BitChute, Telegram, Rockfin, and X. Go to the Duran shop. Pick up some merch, like what I'm wearing in this video update. I've got a Duran sweatshirt. I've got a Duran bomber jacket. And like this video. Share this video. Subscribe to this channel. I'm so close to 215,000 subscribers. Can I get there by the end of the year? Time will tell. Take care.